Joe, last team that we wrap up here with being the Ohio State Buckeyes. They are the number 8 seed. They take on Tennessee. We're talking about paths of direction for teams in the playoff to win a national title. How do you see yours going for Ohio State?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem for Ohio State in some of these dud performances, and the Oregon game is not a bad game. The Nebraska game and the Michigan game are the bad games that you played this year. Their inability to rely and lean on their elite receivers is what has killed them in those performances and what cost them against Michigan. They were going up against a Michigan secondary that was without Will Johnson and that was extremely flawed. It was giving up a ton of yards. So I think that Ohio State's biggest path to success here is lean on your superstars. You've got Emeka Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith at receiver. You've got two very talented running backs, but the way this team keeps trying to be run first, and I don't think that they're run first. They're pass first. Going to those guys at receiver and attacking opposing secondaries is what helps them win. It's how they beat a team like Oregon. It's how they're going to beat Tennessee, and it's how they can beat a team like Texas. And their D-line, the other part of this, my last bit, their D-line has to step up and play their best ball in the next few weeks. They have to go after these opposing offensive lines. A weak offensive line for Tennessee. An offensive line that's very stout in Oregon to get pressures and get after Dillon Gabriel, and then a weak and inconsistent offensive line for Texas as well.
Joe, I'm worried about Ohio State here, mainly due to the fact that when I look at them, they can't run the football. And they've had struggles along their offensive line, getting beaten up and having injuries, with the center and McLaughlin going down, with the Achilles, and just their overall status. They can't run the ball against Michigan and things like that. And I do think that, look, man, I got to be real with you. If they are going to get into a path where they're going to get to a national title, that means that they found ways to be creative in the running game. They throw passes that's extensions of the running game, like get a running back out in the flat quickly, or doing a chip and then checking the ball down, where you're keeping the linebackers at bay. If they don't do that, they're going to lose. And I look at Tennessee, of all these matchups in the first round, of all these matchups really that I look at, the first round game with Tennessee and Ohio State, I think is a bad matchup for them. If you think Michigan's D-line is good, so is Tennessee's. I made a comparison the other night on my other show. Joe, I don't think that there's a team in the SEC based off of blue chip ratio versus evaluations and development that's been better defensively than Tennessee. No one. It's no one. Based off of where they've recruited, the guys that are there, and the development that they have there. You literally just showed me that you cannot run the football with an offense that can't move the ball down the field. That is the biggest concern that I have here. And you're sputtering because of injuries. You can't line up on 3rd and 6. You can't line up on 3rd and 3. You can't line up on 3rd and 1 and run the football. That has been the biggest issue. So to agree with you massively here, Joe, you better go full air raid. And Chip is not the guy to do that. Hot take. Ryan Day's got to get heavily involved in pass game situations. And you gotta, Joe, you gotta go air raid principles in this sense. You have freaks of nature on the outside that you got to get the ball to. You gotta force teams into light boxes. And when you force teams into light boxes, I think that you can get over on Tennessee secondary, even with Will Howard. I think you can do the same thing with Oregon. We saw that you did it to Oregon. But, Joe, until they prove that they get away from running the football and running and ramming their heads up against the wall, there's not a path. But here's the thing. Defensively, they're really good, man.
Yeah.
They're really good. How does this team here's the biggest thing for me. How does this team respond in a situation where they have been the butt of so many jokes the last couple of weeks since the Michigan loss? How do they find a way to be able to overcome all this? And motivation is going to be a big thing for me.
Yeah, motivation more than any team, I think this factors in, is A lot of people also, by the way, were talking about how like this could be a hostile environment for Ohio State in their own home stadium because of how pissed off fans are at Ryan Day. How do they bounce back? Is this a distraction or is this a rallying point? Is this a point that you're going to lock in and say, you know what, we really badly failed to meet our expectations. We really badly failed to beat our rival. We were supposed to be on this trajectory to go undefeated and to win a national title. What is that communication like? If they play their best ball and they play to their potential, they win a national title. That is the simplest way to put it, and it's the only team that I think, it obviously applies to every team, but it is the one team that applies to it the most because they have not played within 60% of their potential in some of these games.
Right.
Oregon game was 70% because the secondary didn't show up. The Michigan game was like 30% of your true potential because you couldn't throw the freaking ball and you couldn't move the ball down the field at all on offense. There are a lot of games where you just look and think, this team's supposed to be better. They on paper are so freaking talented. Offensive line injuries or not, you have the athletes. That is the biggest difference between them and every other team in this field. They have the best receiving core. They have the best passing offense. That gives them an edge. And they have two really good running backs that they need to get the ball in their hands and help them produce. So I'm 100% with you with that last part. If they come out slow in any of these games, they're done. They need to play like there is no tomorrow because the truth is for Ryan Day, and I know he knows this, that there is no tomorrow.
There is tomorrow. They're not going to fire him.
Well, I don't know that for certain, but I don't think that they will.
They're not going to pay that buyout. They're not firing him.
Yeah.
And to be real with you, I mean, look, man, he can't control these injuries along his offensive line either. Joe, I think that if we see a good performance out of Tennessee, I'm going to be real with you. I think they can beat anybody in the country because that would mean to me that they defensively can stop the run. We've seen them do it all year. That would also mean that offensively against a really solid defense, that they were able to find ways to win and game plan. Question now becomes is how good coaching wise can they get themselves into a situation where, Joe, they got to lean on schematics offensively. Mm-hmm. They got to get the ball out quick for Will Howard. That's just the truth. Now, if I'm Tennessee, I got to be real with you. I am playing press man coverage, going man to man, and I'm sending the house at Will Howard in this offensive line, and I'm saying you're going to have to show me that you can fix it. And if you can fix it, that's fine. If you can show me that you can do it, that's fine. But, man, I think there's a clear path for me that I think if they can contain what Tennessee will throw at them, Joe, their biggest weakness right now, running the ball, not necessarily an issue against Oregon. We saw Penn State line up and run the ball on them. They have a path there. Texas can't run the ball either. So a lot of these teams have a lot of the same issues in some aspects. I got to be real with you. It's a hard path. But they're going to have to get creative schematically, offensively, because their defense is going to carry them to a national championship. That's the only way that I see that they'll have success here. Yeah, no, absolutely. The Ohio State, I think, is my final piece on this. So Ohio State is the biggest wild card in the whole playoff field because they could play a really disappointing opening game and get knocked out, and then we're just moving on and we're done talking about them. Or they could play at a prolific level, an inspired level, and spark a national championship run. They're the only team that I think I can say that for, that the outcomes are so volatile. There's no in between for me. There's none. I agree. They can flip a switch and go win an Natty. You're right. They can. But, man, we just don't know if they can do it. Well, let me ask you this question. Have you seen the team inspired to play offensively in big moments? From Ohio State? Yeah, from Ohio State. No. I know it's in there. Actually, the end of the Oregon game, except for that final drive and the way that it ended, I thought they were inspired. Here's the truth, though, too. If you score 31 points, your defense should slow that team down for you to win. I'm never going to get on a team when you score 31 points and you say, oh, the offense lost us a game. That is a complete load of dog shit. Right. You know, like, a big Billy Madison, light a paper bag on fire, stomp it out, dog shit. Too graphic?
True. No.
I mean, it is.
I know the reference you're talking about.
Well, there you go. Finally, you got a movie one.
I told you I've seen Billy Madison. I don't remember any of the quotes.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.